Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're navigating a stack of sources that really pull back the curtain on some intense pressure, some dramatic shifts within one of America's major political parties.
Right.
Our mission, really, is to understand the complexities. You've got this sweeping legislative push, significant internal party divides, and maybe most surprisingly, the bold emergence of a new, powerful voice threatening to reshape the whole political landscape.
It's a lot happening at once.
It is. We're going to unpack the high-stakes legislative battle in the Senate, explore how some key figures are reacting to, well, this evolving political climate, and dive into the unexpected foray of a tech billionaire into party politics. Get ready to uncover what's truly going on behind the headlines.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack this monumental policy bill first and the legislative marathon surrounding it. The reporting describes how Senate Republicans have just been racing, over 3 days through an all-night session, trying to pass President Trump's big, beautiful bill.
Well, what's truly striking here isn't just, the length of the debate, but the sheer endurance required.
Yeah.
Democratic efforts have been really consistent, challenging pretty much every element of the measure, particularly its proposed cuts to Medicaid and federal nutrition programs, alongside tax cuts for the wealthy.
Right, those are the big sticking points.
Exactly. And this bill, it's clearly a linchpin for President Trump's agenda, right? With that self-imposed deadline of enactment by July 4th. That signals just how critical this piece of legislation is seen within the party.
And you really get a sense of that endurance, like you said, when you hear about senators literally catching the sunrise on the Senate floor.
Yeah, it shows just how much is on the line.
It really does. But amidst this, partisan tug-of-war, we did find a surprising moment, a bit of bipartisanship, actually.
Indeed. Quite striking. In an overnight vote, senators unanimously agreed to end unemployment benefits for jobless individuals making over $1 million a year before being fired.
$1 million, wow.
Yeah. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, who sponsored the amendment, famously called them freeloading fat cats.
Ah.
And this really reveals how, even in our hyper-polarized environment, a specific, easily identifiable target, especially one seen as exploiting the system, can still unite politicians across the aisle, sometimes.
That unanimous vote, that was one surprise. But overnight, there was another equally striking decision, this time about, a much newer technology.
Ah, yes.
A provision that would effectively block states from passing and enforcing artificial intelligence laws for the next decade. It was stripped from the bill.
Right.
The vote was 99-1. Just one senator, Tom Tillis, North Carolina, cast the opposing vote. That's massive. What does that surprising near unanimity tell us about how Congress is truly grappling with AI?
Well, it's a powerful signal, isn't it? Because it suggests a kind of widespread reluctance for states to create this patchwork of differing AI regulations. This could indicate maybe a preference for a future federal framework, or maybe just an acknowledgement of how little is truly understood about regulating AI right now. It seems less an assertion of power and maybe more deferral, which is significant. It shows legislative caution on such a complex issue.
Caution. Interesting.
But, despite these surprising votes, party leaders like Majority Leader John Thune are saying they're close to passing the main bill. Yet divisions persist.
Right.
The House Republicans, for instance, they're fragmented. You've got hard-right conservatives concerned about the bill's higher price tag, the deficit impact, while moderate House Republicans are wary of those Medicaid cuts we mentioned.
And then there's the intense negotiation with Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska.
Yeah.
She's a truly pivotal vote here.
Absolutely key.
The Senate parliamentarian, that's the nonpartisan official who advises on the rules, is reviewing these last-minute changes added specifically to win her support, making sure the bill can pass under those special rules that bypass the filibuster with just a simple majority.
Right, the reconciliation process.
Exactly. How does one individual senator wield so much power in a situation like this? And what's it tell us about the current legislative landscape?
Well, it's a fascinating dynamic, isn't it? When votes are this tight, every single senator's leverage just skyrockets.
Right.
What's truly insightful here is how the sheer tightness of the vote empowers someone like Murkowski to potentially reshape major legislation. It effectively turns one person's influence into a possible bottleneck for an entire party's agenda.
Yeah.
It really underscores how much individual power seems to have grown in this hyper-partisan environment, often moving beyond, traditional party lines. And this really sets the stage for a broader discussion about these evolving party dynamics.
But, okay, as the Senate wrestled with this critical bill, an unexpected voice started rattling the political cage from the outside.
Ah, yeah.
We're talking about the country's biggest Republican donor stepping onto the stage with a very public declaration.
Yes, we're talking about Elon Musk. The material we've looked at details his dramatic escalation of anti-Republican rhetoric, particularly his threat to form a new America party if this big domestic policy bill passes.
A whole new party.
That's what he said. He posted on X telling his, 220 million followers, if this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. I mean, this isn't just a donor pulling support. It's a direct challenge.
And he didn't just stop at threats, right? He committed to specific action, stating explicitly, our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican uniparty so that the people actually have a voice.
That's right. He pledged to support Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky. He's a prominent holdout against Trump's bill, and even declared that, quote, nearly the entire House and Senate GOP will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. Strong words. He even called out specific House Republicans like Andy Harris of Maryland and Chip Roy of Texas, leaders of the House Freedom Caucus, that's the group of hardline conservatives, and squabbled publicly with Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma. This kind of reveals a calculated strategy, doesn't it? Not just criticizing, but actively trying to disrupt the party from within.
That's a tall task, as the reporting notes, even for someone who donated, nearly $300 million to Republican candidates just in the 2024 election cycle.
Huge amount.
And the plot thickened pretty quickly when President Trump himself fired back.
Yeah, Trump seemed to threaten the federal subsidies Musk's companies, like SpaceX, receive.
Oof.
He posted on social media that Musk may get more subsidy than any human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa.
Whoa.
And he even added, perhaps we should have DOGE take a good, hard look at this, referring to the Department of Government Efficiency, which is a rather provocatively named group Musk himself had recently formed.
Right, DOGE.
This public feud really underscores a fascinating tension here.
Indeed. And what's striking is how this blow-up with Trump appears to have hastened his stated interest in the formation of a new party.
Seems that way.
The research indicates Musk had, a tenuous, brief relationship with the Republican Party. He identified as a Democrat for a long time before shifting to the GOP in 2022, and then making those heavy contributions before the last November election.
Right, it was a relatively recent shift. And he even polled his ex-followers, didn't he, asking, is it time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle?
The 80%.
Yeah, which raises that important question about the viability of third parties in the U.S. History shows it's a Herculean task, as the sources put it.
Definitely.
And the specific modern hurdles Musk faces. Well, it's not just ballot access and funding, but also carving out a distinct ideological space when both major parties are already dealing with their own internal fragmentation,
That's a good point.
And the information also reveals no immediate signs of concrete action from Musk to actually form one, despite the strong statements. What's also kind of notable is that only 5 weeks earlier, Musk had said he would spend a lot less on elections in the 2026 cycle. So that shows a really rapid, maybe impulsive shift in his public stance on political engagement.
A very rapid shift. Okay, so we've seen the outside pressure from figures like Musk, but what about the internal shifts within the party itself? The sources point to this fascinating trend they've termed a self-deportation from Washington. Some Republicans feeling increasingly out of step with Trump's GOP.
Yes, this applies to figures like Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, who we mentioned earlier.
Right, the lone no vote on the AI thing.
Exactly, and Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska. Both of them are opting to retire. Tillis, for example, he learned the power of health care at the ballot box way back, early in his career. He won elections in 2011 and 2014, partly due to voter anger over the Affordable Care Act. So his political roots are kind of tied to that issue.
Yet here he is, refusing to back President Trump's signature domestic policy bill, stating right on the Senate floor that Republicans are about to make a mistake on health care and betraying a promise.
Powerful words.
Yeah. He even blamed amateurs in the White House and warned the bill would kick, I think it was, 663,000 people off Medicaid in North Carolina alone. That's a pretty strong repudiation from within the party, isn't it?
Absolutely. It really highlights the profound dilemma for some Republicans trying to balance constituent needs, maybe their own policy beliefs, with party loyalty, particularly loyalty to the former president.
Hmm.
Tillis, despite his past strong support for Trump, he voted to acquit him after January 6th, confirmed Pete Hegseth for defense secretary. He decided retirement was his only option rather than perhaps compromising his position on health care.
Wow.
And similarly, Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska, a 5-term incumbent and a known Trump critic, he also announced his retirement. He stated his desire to fight for the soul of our party and not be the guy who follows the flute player off the cliff.
Another strong statement.
Very. This is more than just, individual decisions. It feels like a direct reflection of these ideological fault lines running through the party.
And these retirements, they're creating open seats, often in competitive territory. We're reminded that this isn't an entirely new phenomenon, right?
No, not entirely.
The first Trump presidency saw an exodus of some moderate Republicans, like Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona. Others lost re-election. It left fewer moderates in Congress today.
That's true. But what's truly fascinating here, I think, is that it's not exclusively moderates this time around. Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, certainly far from a moderate.
Right.
He also found himself increasingly isolated before announcing his own retirement back in February. So this raises an important question, doesn't it? Is this pattern of departure, even among these long-standing powerful figures, a sign of a fundamental restructuring of the Republican Party, where maybe ideological alignment with one figure becomes paramount, even for those who traditionally held significant sway? It really seems to point towards a dramatic transformation underway.
So, okay, we've gone deep into these high-stakes legislative battles. The bold and disruptive entry of Elon Musk into the political fray, and this is a significant trend of experienced Republicans choosing to leave Congress.
Yeah, we've seen the internal friction within the Republican Party, the huge challenges of passing major legislation, and the, volatile relationship between powerful figures both inside and outside Washington. It really paints a dynamic and, frankly, often turbulent picture of American politics right now.
It certainly does. We've touched on key details, from specific amendment votes like the AI one to those powerful social media declarations from Musk and Trump, all of which are shaping the political future in pretty profound ways.
Absolutely. And this all prompts maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. As these party lines seem to blur, new political forces like Musk emerge and established figures step aside. What does this ongoing realignment mean for the very definition of political representation, and maybe even the effectiveness of governance in the years to come?